voices blending, melodies ascending, harmony in the air. Our songs are never ending. In the barbershop we create magic. Brad and John show, yeah, it's pure classic. No instruments needed, just our vocal range. Notes flying high, it's our musical exchange. Tracy's station may try, but they can't compete. Our barbershop style, it can't be beat. Oh, the harmony of voices, so sweet. In the barbershop of life, our tunes will repeat. No need for instruments, no need for a band. Just the Brad and John show, the finest in the land.
John, by listening to that, I'm trying to think, what day is it, John? What day would it be?
I think it is Monday morning, Brad.
No, I don't think.
Isn't it Monday, April 28th?
No, it's Friday the 25th, and because it's the 25th, that must mean it's a Friday, and we start the show off that way. That is John Combest, the voice you just heard. He puts together this website called johncombest.com every single day of his life for the past 23 years. Very important stuff you should know about, and what we do is we bring in John to tell us all the important things that are on his website, but we limit it to the top 3, and we have a special intro on Friday, which is...
Time for the John Combest Top 3.
It is time for the John Combest Top 3. John, we bring in this guy right here. You know who this is?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And he starts it off with this.
In third place,
We sure have spent a lot of time this week talking about Missouri's utility companies. We've mentioned Spire, Missouri American Water. You know, they're in line for some rate hikes coming up this spring and summer. But also, we spent a lot of time talking about Ameren. And we're not done, because on Wednesday, the Wentzville City Council approved Ameren's plan for a 66-acre training complex. That's right. Ameren workers will start training in Wentzville starting in 2027. Now, construction's not going to start till next year, but here's the controversy, Brad. And for folks here in the Westplex, this location will be near the intersection of Josephville and Mexico Roads. It's near the General Motors plant on the city's north side. And by the way, the story is brought to us by Ethan Colbert from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Now, there's been some challenges lately, Brad, because apparently the sewer system in that neighborhood is already taxed. So there needs to be a study of the sewer system, and that's going to be expected within the next month. And improvements will likely be completed before the facility, the new Ameren facility, opens in December 2027. There's also, of course, when you open up something like this, you need to have a traffic study because you're going to have a whole bunch of new cars coming in. And Ameren says that every weekday, once this facility opens, there will be an estimated 150 to 200 people training there every weekday. This seems like really good news for the local, the community and small businesses there, Brad. Those folks got to run out and eat lunch. Some of them will probably stay overnight in a hotel. Some of them after work will probably want to grab some brewskis and some food with their buddies. Sounds like pretty good news, right, Brad?
Well, you would think, but...
What's the but there, Brad?
Well, I don't know. It sounds like you're leading up to the fact that a citizens group has coalesced, and they're going to protest this, and they're saying, we don't want those 150 people coming on our roads every day. It's messing things up.
Yeah, you would think that some people would be opposed to it. And I think there's generally there's two sides of the coin, because people love the idea that a company will be moving in and spending money there. But anytime you're a utility, as we discussed yesterday, anytime you're raising rates on people, people are going to kvetch and complain. People generally dislike new things, and they dislike corporations that are actually making money. So, there'll probably be some headaches between now and then. And also, Ameren made clear that this facility is not being paid for by the rate increase that just went through the Missouri Public Service Commission. Ameren is not saying how much this new training facility will cost. And by the way, construction is set to begin next April. So if you're in the area, you have a little bit of time before your roads are going to, probably start being shut down, or before you see some giant construction trucks on Mexico Road.
Well, was that it, John?
That is it for story number one. You usually, Brad, have something witty to say about, a solar farm or something, some sort of nitpicking that you could do against Ameren.
Well, no, I don't have a problem with this. I mean, I guess I thought the way you were leading the story, I truly thought there was going to be like some citizen uprising. Oh my God, this is terrible. We don't want this. Blah, 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 blah. And when you said 150 people a day, that's nothing. When you think about that, why do they even have to do a traffic study for that? That's 150 cars. Whoop-de-doo. That's probably, if you go on Wentzville Parkway, 150 cars is what's sitting at the traffic light there, at whatever one of the intersections is. That's like no big deal.
That's a great point, Brent. You had that kind of traffic inside Target in a half hour.
Yeah,
on a weekend for sure. Well, but the company and the city are going to do their due diligence. I'm sure the worst case scenario for being a city councilman is probably this facility opens up in December 2027, and good Lord willing, you're still on the city council, and some local neighbor says, I can't believe all these cars. Why didn't somebody do a traffic study?
Well,
and if you didn't do a traffic study, people would complain.
It's sort of like a real estate agent I know who shall remain nameless, who's told me a couple funny stories about the fact that people, and I'm not going to name this specific area because people might figure out who I'm talking about, but there was a high school there that they built houses around, and once the people moved in, a lot of the people near the high school moved in in June, July, and August, when there was nobody there at the high school. But then when high school opened, the neighbors were complaining, we smell the diesel smell from the buses, and we don't like that. And then not only that, then that was complaint A. Complaint B was when during football season on Friday nights, the lights shine in our windows and we hear the announcer and the band and people, and we hear the buzzer from the scoreboard. It's like my classic example out in St. Charles County. For any of you guys who've been out there a long time, you remember the old St. Charles Speedway, which is right there at Highway 94, now 364 in Junks Road. And it was there since like the 40s or something like that. It was a high bank dirt track. It was a POS racetrack, but a lot of people went there and it was very popular. Well, once again, here I go. I'm sorry. They put in a subdivision next to it, but the subdivision started in November, and the people moved in in April and May, and then the race season started. Oh my God, we can't stand this noise. It's terrible, blah, blah, blah. You moved next to a racetrack. Guess what? You didn't do your due diligence. Wouldn't you think before you bought a house, you'd drive the neighborhood? Oh, there's a racetrack. Oh, I don't know about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think the good news is the St. Charles racetrack is really anywhere within a 10-meter range of Shelley Barn, 364.
By the way, I know I'm switching things, but did you see this post? I don't know if you saw this. I think it was on X, that apparently the St. Louis City Police and the State Highway Patrol have teamed up, which that in itself is news because that's not something that normally happens. They don't work together. Not that the Highway Department, Highway Patrol, but they're running up and down 70. It was like a PR thing. And the picture was the cop car had pulled over, of course, a Dodge Challenger or a Charger, because those do not go under 100 miles an hour in the interstate. And you saw the radar gun or the whatever you call it, laser gun sitting on the dashboard, and it showed 96 miles an hour, and the caption on the thing was, we're out there patrolling. And then everybody starts putting in, and like my favorite interstate, 170, which is to the point where it's like, if you've ever driven 170, I have a friend of mine who comments that she will detour around 170 because she can't believe how crazy the people driving 170, and it is nuts. And part of the problem is Once again, there used to be a little city, it's still there, called Bell Ridge, and back in the day, they had a grant from the Federal Highway Department to patrol the highway and give out tickets. And they had a guy who was there all the time. Nobody's out there anymore. You can get on 170 at 40 and do 120 miles an hour all the way up to 270, and you'll never run through any radar. Nobody's out there patrolling it anymore. It's just
that is amazing.
Everybody's just given up on it. And it's to the point where that's where you have shootings. You know, I mean, there was a poor lady was caught in a crossfire, was shot in the head between Paige and Olive. I mean, it's just nuts. How do we get talking about
that's terrible. You know where there's a lot of crime, Brad? Story number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
This week in Missouri politics, TWMPDaily, hosted yesterday by the great Jake Croson. He had State Senator Karla May from St. Louis City was a special guest. And as you can imagine, they spent some time talking about the governor's crime bill. Now, Jake and Senator May spent some time touching on other issues. But I want to touch on the crime piece real quick, Brad, because it goes beyond policy. And we've talked ad nauseum about control over St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and crime in the city. But more importantly, I think this might be the most important piece of advice gleaned by any guest on This Week in Missouri Politics, the regular show or the daily show. Here's what Senator May said when Jake teed up the idea of the governor's crime plan. Senator May said, "It's nice that the governor has a plan, but has he communicated that plan to the people that represent the city of St. Louis? You follow me? You can't have silo plans because it doesn't work in St. Louis. The unique thing about St. Louis people, when they're not included, they fight against the plan. You got me? If you leave me out, I've been here forever. You follow me?" Now, that's a verbatim quote, and I think it's important to do it verbatim because I wanted to get a little bit of the flavor of how Senator May said it. But also the idea is what I think she's getting at. She didn't say it outright, but the governor has this crime plan, and she's not sure if the governor has taken it to every alderman in the city, if he's taken it to every alderman-elect in the city, or even if he's taken it to every state representative in St. Louis City. I would assume here that he's had multiple conversations with Senator May. But to me, this is the most instructive point, and it goes beyond the city of St. Louis. If you are working at some corporation or some nonprofit, or you're a public policy person, before you launch a plan, a lot of people will tell you, after launch, you need to do a postmortem. You need to see everything that went right and everything that went wrong. Brad, I'm a big advocate of the pre-mortem. So before you launch an announcement, before you launch a crime bill, before you launch that you're buying a new radio station or that you're launching some new initiative, you do the pre-mortem and you say, who will be so upset that they weren't involved in this that they will try to kill our announcement, kill our plan, immediately put it down, immediately sandbag it. So Karla May's advice here, if people aren't included, they'll try to put down the plan. They'll try to stop it. Everybody can learn something from that quote. I'm so glad that Senator May pointed this out because these are the instructive things that have nothing to do with language in a crime bill. And they have everything to do with showing respect to elected officials and to other stakeholders.
One of my favorite words, stakeholders. Okay.
I know, I used it just for you, Brad.
It's interesting when you quoted follow me and you gave that nuanced, it almost sounded like you were reading Jasmine Crockett quotes. You know what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. I would take a million Karla Mays every day of the week over a single Jasmine Crockett, but I don't know either one.
You don't know either one?
Yeah, believe it or not, I don't spend a lot of time with Jasmine. Although, Brad, you used to spend a lot of time in Sauget, and I think there were probably some women in clear heels named Jasmine over there.
Okay, it's on to number one.
The number one.
Senator Eric Schmitt was on Fox News, the Ingram Angle, and he was talking about how these elite East Coast universities are pushing back against President Trump. The mainstream narrative is that President Trump wants to slash research. President Trump wants an uninformed higher education community because he wants uninformed people. Senator Schmitt was pointing out that, what Trump really wants to do is reduce some of the overhead in these research grants. But I'm kind of stepping over the most important quote from Senator Schmitt. He said he was citing a third party. There's a conservative group that ranks where colleges are in terms of free speech. Do they shut down conservative? Do they allow dissent on campus? Here's the quote from Senator Schmitt. Harvard and Columbia are tied for last with a 0.0 free speech rating. That's a Blutarski. What do you think, Brad? Senator Schmitt quoting Animal House on Fox News.
John must have been in seventh heaven, right?
I saw the clip from Senator Schmitt first on Instagram, and he's a great follow on Instagram. He's just fantastic. The musical selection is off the charts. In fact, Brad, our friend Camelia Peterson documents Senator Schmitt's musical selections on Instagram. She has her own playlist of Senator Schmitt songs. But Schmitt put it on Instagram, and I said, oh my gosh, this is too good. That I went and I fetched the clip. Anyway, his point. Now, not only was it a fantastic cultural reference, an anecdote there, but his point is, look, these colleges are literally the worst of the worst when it comes to cracking down on conservatives and stifling free speech. How dare they oppose President Trump when he's coming out and saying, look, there will be no more racist DEI. There will be no more anti-white, anti-Jewish sentiment. Excuse me, not sentiment, but practices and policies on these campuses.
Well, I don't know. This is maybe dovetails into that, and maybe it doesn't. Did you see that? Is it Alex Soros, who is George Soros' son? I believe it's Alex. Did you see that?
Oh, I haven't seen the story. What did he do?
Well, he gave, if you know Soros, they give money to, like, for example, they funded essentially, to a large degree, funded Kim Gardner's campaign. They fund a lot of left-wing things.
Yeah, they launder it through some different PACs and fund the campaigns. Yeah.
Right. And I think it was Alex Soros. I have to go look at the story again. He was complaining about the fact that they gave $1 million to some group that was was an environmental group, and they show up on campus and they're protesting the Jewish students. And he's going like, what is going on? Now, the interesting part of this is the Soroses are Jewish. So they give $1 million to this group to protest climate. And no, they're on campus. I can't remember what campus they're on. They're on campus, saying Palestinians are wonderful and the Zionist Jews should die. And he's going like, okay, what's going on here? You're supposed to be protesting climate change. It's just bizarre. Now
they just have a different political religion every day, Brett.
Well, I think that we need to essentially, for people who are normal listeners of the show and people who know some of the older movies, we need to reference the fact that Blutarski, did I get it right? Was that his name in the movie?
Yeah, it's Blutarski, yeah.
Blutarski is the name for John Belushi in the infamous movie Animal House. And one of John's favorite quotes was it Dean Warmer?
Dean Warmer is admonishing the boys.
Right. And he's giving out their grade point averages. And Blutarski's grade point average is what, John?
0.0.
I told you the story. I think about this every time you mention that. And Dean Wormer, I can't remember the actor that plays his name, but there was a story about some guy who got on a plane and he was a big Animal House fan. And he's going, walking down the aisle and he sees the actor who plays, I can't remember his name. I should look it up. He sees the actor who plays Dean Wormer and he says, Dean Wormer. He points at him real loud. And Wormer says, of all the roles I've had in my acting career, why is that the one that everybody remembers me for? Because it was such a classic role. I mean, you agree, John?
Absolutely. And you know what? He says that probably tongue-in-cheek when he complains. But think of whether he's still with us or not. Think of the royalty checks. Think of the mailbox money he got every month from that movie.
You would hope, because the crazy thing on some of those low-budget movies, and not only necessarily the low-budget movies, there's stories all the time. You hear these stars, oh my God, you were in that movie. Yeah, I made $30,000 and I haven't seen a penny of it since. You know what I mean? You think they're like rolling in the dope.
If we're going to figure out how much he got in royalty, we should go to according to AI. I bet that would tell us.
John's making fun of me now. Okay. You want me to read a couple of them that went up yesterday? Did you look at that?
Yeah, that would be. Let's do that in B block.
You don't care about that. You think that's
No, I really do want to hear.
Okay. But we'll talk about it in B block.
I heard Bill Eigel might be running for Senate, and I would love an AI answer to whether or not that is true.
Bill Eigel texted me yesterday. It's funny you should mention that.
Oh, nice.
Okay,